Hello again, and welcome to the Master's Voice. I am Celestial, and you are welcome to this channel. To old and new subscribers alike, you are very welcome. The Master's Voice is an audio and a visual resource that you can find on multiple social media platforms. My main blog is at www.the-masters-voice.com. This is the main English channel, but there are subtitle translations available here. You just have to give it about 24 or 48 hours after every new video. And then if you click up at the top, you will see a little gear wheel. And if you click language, or I think it says caption, then it offers about 24 different languages that you can use to translate the content that's here. There's a really well translated Spanish language blog that is called Canal Profético La Voz del Señor, and you will find the address for that underneath most videos. There's also a YouTube channel, a BitChute channel, a Brighteon channel, and a Rumble channel for that. So you can find all that underneath the video. I have a TikTok, I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook, I have multiple social media. So always be sure to look underneath the video, and then you can find where it is most convenient for you to follow. Even though I strongly suggest that you should get in the habit of watching the long form videos, you don't have to consume them all at once, because sometimes the material is very dense and it can take several hours. Sometimes it's several hours broken up across several parts that form a series. But it is better to watch the long videos, because the reason for this channel is for America in particular, and then the rest of the world, to get the mind of God. God is in a particular locus at this point in time. God is at a particular time and space. God is in a particular mind frame. And it is essential that those who call themselves or consider themselves to be children of God should be of the same mind with God, of one mind with God. It is essentially important for a Christian to know what angle God is coming from at this point in time. And I mean that generally, as in terms of the spiritual atmosphere, in terms of what is God saying to us as humanity at this time. Is it the popular belief system that God is a God of love and God is saying nothing but positivity? Is God of the mind frame that Christianity is mostly or generally doing well and only needs one or two tweaks, and then Christianity is going to be able to be set back as a pinnacle in the earth again? Or is God actually coming to the place, landing at the place where he is saying that the reign of men is over? The time of the gods and the demigods has come, as in things that are not of human import, and the time of mankind is now winding down, which means that mankind is going to find themselves, ourselves, more and more and more suppressed, more and more repressed, and having to go through the kind of life experiences, environments, changes, and global frameworks, global ideas, global mindsets that are not going to favor us as humanity. Is that what God is saying? Or is God simply saying there's many more great years ahead, and generally I give you guys a B+ to an A, and I just want to tweak a few things, and then I'm going to allow you to continue on as you have been? The answer for part A, that we can continue on as we have been, is a decisive no. What God is saying is that he is going to finish the kingdoms. He is going to wind down all nations, and he is going to allow to rise up in the nations, particularly this one, the United States of America, a globally repressive and horrible form of government that is going to be dictatorial. It is going to dictate to us the kind of life that we should live, the kind of people that we should be. It is going to force us into such a small pattern, meaning that we will have such little wiggle room that the worst aspects of human beings is going to come out. The worst aspects of ourselves is going to come out. And this is where, instead of Christians thinking that they're going to be raptured and they're going to be snatched away into some glory land according to their schedule, this is where Christians need to wake up and realize that the Bible has always told us that we will be tested. The Bible has always told us that we will be purged. The Bible has always told us that we will be tried as fine metals, because God is interested in seeing who among us is capable of producing that perfect faith that is like finely spun gold. The reality is that we are going to be put through a long series of hoops, tests, trials, tribulations. Not all of us are going to make it to the end alive. That is why the Bible says, we who are alive and remain. So this message that I have from the Lord is not long, and it is directly related to the two that were recently put up on the Master's Voice Prophecy blog. 666, your judgment remains upon you. You have changed nothing. And the other one that says that America is a nation that will fall from within. America is a nation unto war. The Lord is saying that America is going to have a civil war, and that prophecy is all the way from the year 2020. That God says that Americans will be a people who are undergoing some kind of strange spiritual madness, not so much strange as to where it comes from. God is the one who's going to send that madness upon us. He's going to allow that madness to come upon Americans, he says, because of the wickedness of their hearts, because of what they love. They do not love him. They love after politics. They love after money. They love after sexual immorality. They love after entertainment. They have no love for their fellow man, and definitely not for their fellow man outside their borders. And so God says the culmination of all those sins in the nations over time means that America will be judged with spiritual madness. As Americans become spiritually mad over the things that they want, over the things that they want to support, the things that they want to pursue, God has said that there will come tearing rifts in the country between different groups, such as different ethnic backgrounds. You find people of all different ethnic backgrounds from around the world. Different faiths and beliefs are all mixed into the great melting pot that is Mystery Babylon. Well, at the end of time, the melted metals are going to start separating. Some people are going to find it impossible to cling to American ideals, because American ideals are going to shift so greatly. They've already started shifting over the last 10 years, I would say, but they're going to become so manifest. The inside parts of America is going to become so manifest that, for instance, people who want to marry man and woman and have a normal family will not be able to live here anymore because of the kind of debauchery and sexual immorality that will be openly in the streets and also sanctioned and promoted by the government. And so people are going to return to their native lands. That's one thing. Ethnic dissociation is going to happen. Racial dissociation is going to happen. The different races are going to find less and less in common. They're going to be fighting. They're going to be at each other's throats, to the point where God says that a foreigner will not understand how Americans in the same nation will hate each other so much. It's going to be gender-based as well. Man hating woman, trans hating man and woman because they feel that they don't belong or they're not being accepted. All kinds of things are going to be happening. And so in the midst of that chaos, in the midst of that separation, we are going to end up with a civil war. And one of the main catalysts of why we will have a civil war is because we're going to have a government that people just will not be able to stand. The American government is going to be so out of hand. The American government is going to take so many liberties. The American government is going to push the envelope so hard that even people who are not short-tempered in this country, even people who consider themselves peaceful people, patient people, objective people, they are not going to be able to sit back for the most part and say that the government can get away with what it's going to get away with. So these are some insights that the Lord was giving me on the 9th of November when he was giving me the prophecy about war, when he was giving me the prophecy about the fact that America will not change her destination. She will not change her outcome by trying to do this or do that to say she's buying herself time. And this prophecy is called "The Regime Will Consume the Republic." The regime will consume the republic, November the 9th, 2024. And these are just insights into what daily life in what is the beast system will be like. Please don't ever expect that the government will ever come out in this country, or even the beast system itself will ever come out worldwide and say, we are the kingdom of the beast. We are fulfilling Revelation 13, Revelation 16, 17, 18. We label ourselves beast system. They're not going to do that. They're never going to come out and say that we are of Satan. They're always going to paint themselves as a higher minded form of governance that is for the people, that is looking out for our interests, and that has found new and innovative ways to give us a so-called better quality of life. A lot of things in the future are going to be absolutely automated. I've said that in the future you can expect to see less and less and less people, for instance, in the service industry, because they're going to start bringing us robots. Right now, we're in the frustration part of the gestation. When you go into a store, when you go into an establishment, you all know that there's less people available. You go into the bank, you'll see 10 windows, there's only 3 people working. You go into the supermarket, you see 20 stalls, there's only 10 people working. And they try to space them out to make it look like everybody else is taking the break. But the fact is that nobody else is coming. And so we have gotten used to, as Americans, longer and longer wait times. We have gotten used to the proliferation, the literal explosion of self-service kiosks. These people are taking our money and also making us work for ourselves. And they're telling us it's convenience. And most of the time, because we are being forced to stand in long lines, most of us have places to be, and we eventually break out of the lines and we go and we serve ourselves. Notice that they will always have 1 or 2 clerks there, not to help us, but to watch and make sure that we are not stealing as we check out our groceries. So they do have staff. They are methodically cutting back staff so that they can retain more profits while making us give us their money, give them our money, and serve ourselves. Give ourselves service and then still say, I went to Kroger's or I went to Whole Foods. This is all part of a deliberate move into a society where we get used to seeing no people. We get used to serving ourselves, and then eventually they will put a robot there, or they will put a hologram there, and the hologram and the robot will serve us. And because we are used to not dealing with other people, we will not think anything of it, because we are being conditioned to get used to how life is going to be. So in this prophecy, God was giving me future insights into how it will be, and there are so many beast prophecies. I took the time before this one, and I've compiled 13 of them for you that are made. So 13 have been made so far, and I only picked the ones that actually have beast system in the title. But there are many more that will contain a 30 or 40 minute clip about life in the beast system, but speaking of different aspects of daily life. So I just picked the ones that are already made. There's a video for it, and you will be able to benefit from that. So the regime will consume the republic November the 9th, 2024. And what it is saying is basically the coming beast system is going to eat up the Republic of the United States. The United States will not be able to continue to exist in the form that we know it. My country, 'tis of thee, and all that. That cannot continue if the beast system is going to exist. The beast system has different goals. The beast system has different ideals. The beast system has a completely different type of leadership structure. So it does not need the American way of doing things, a 3-part government with the legislative and the executive and the judiciary. It has no need of that because it is a kingdom. The beast system is the kingdom of Satan. And in kingdoms, we have kings. We do not have presidents. We do not have the electoral college. We do not have human beings going to voting booths and pressing buttons to say, I feel this way and I feel that way. In a kingdom, the king rules by right. He doesn't even rule by law. He rules by something higher than law. He rules by right. He is above the law. The king is the law. The king can make a law simply by speaking. What he says, whatever he feels in his heart, that becomes the law. That is how kingships organize. And the reason that the modern world, for the most part, is opposed to kingships is because we have passed through the era where the revolutions won the people's the freedoms. The people got rid of the old leadership structure. The people got rid of the old leaders. They got rid of this centralized power at the top and them working in the fields all the time as serfs or as slaves or as sharecroppers. And now modernity demands an inclusive form of government. But I have always told you that we are going back to the Old Testament. God has always shown that we are going back. The whole world is going back to the way it used to be. And the reason it's so hard for modern people to accept that is because they feel that the inclusivity, or at least the illusion of being included, that has been handed to them by telling them, let's have a round table, let's have a vote, let's have a moratorium, let's have an election. People do not want to give up what they call their civil liberties, their civil rights. And so because they will not give them up, the system is going to absolutely force them to give it up. And once that happens, this is where the seeds of revolution come in. People will fight their war. They will lose that war. And then after that, we will see the beast system come out with its full face. So the Holy Spirit was giving me this information. Please listen. It relates to you, United States of America. We are going into a one world system government, military style, repressive and controlling. It will be a limited style of government, meaning less involvement from various sectors than ever before. Right now, we have the House of Representatives and the Senate, an executive branch, and also a judicial branch, a setup of judges, lawyers, and independent courts. But we will have to consider what life will be like when everything except the executive is active with actionable power. A time will come when only the voice of a sole ruler will have power in the land. Yah says that many options on the menu currently available to the American people will no longer be available. Freedoms and civil rights will be sharply curtailed. And many things that Americans can currently do without restrictions, such as travel, such as purchases without limits, will change. There will be limits put on the simplest things, even the number of items that people can have or build or buy. And they will not be able to have or build or buy those things anymore. And so just going back to the top where God is talking about a one world system government, you can find all of that written out for us in I guess the way that God thought was best for us in Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13 is a chapter that details an extremely powerful central figure, a figure who he definitely seems to stand suspended in between what we would refer to as normal life, which is people going about their daily business, people having their government systems, people living their lives as people within their own borders, exercising the sovereignty that you get as the citizen, as opposed to the sovereignty that the state gets as a state in the midst of other states. He's suspended between the normal operation of how human life has always been, and yet the Bible is very clear about the fact that this beast has incredible power and incredible reach. It talks about 7 heads. It talks about 7 crowns. It talks about 7 horns. It talks about 10 crowns. It talks about a dragon who gives authority to this beast. Once you hear the dragon being involved, this means that the beast is able to seamlessly marry a human element, meaning that this will be a man walking around among us just like us, and yet at the same time, he is married to the spiritual realm. He is married to the spiritual realm, and that automatically gives this beast power in himself over the vast majority of people who divorce themselves from the spiritual realm. They mock the spiritual realm. They say that God does not exist, or they say that God is a certain kind of person. They make him very much less. They say that he is a God who only just loves, and he is a God who is only just like a bra. He's just there to be supportive of whatever the human element wants. And so many people who claim to be aware of the spiritual realm, they strip God of the most important aspect of him, his sovereignty, his ability to do anything, and his deity. And so he is not quite God, but this beast does not do that. He does not strip the one who gives him power. The beast is seamlessly melted, his human self seamlessly melted together with the spiritual realm, receiving all his power, receiving all his ability, receiving all his upliftedness and exaltedness from a formidable enemy the devil. And so this man is going to be melded together like this, walking in the midst of people who claim, for instance, that they're atheists. So they will not be acknowledging God at that time, which leaves them open open garage doors for their brains to easily be affected by this man who has sunk himself into what he believes in. His version of the spiritual realm, he is fully locked in to the devil's power, and he will now be operating as a double fist against people who are only a single fist in this world, walking around and saying, well, I am the law unto myself, and I don't believe this, and besides, we're not a generation that's appointed unto wrath. Many Christians are like this. They're single fist, and the reason is because they reject God's true interpretation of the times that we are in. They cast it off and they say, but this is wickedness, this is doom and gloom, this is not love. And so once you cast off the covering God wants to give you, when he's actually saying no, hard impacts are coming, tests and trials are coming, my people, enter into your room for a little while. Because why? Because the indignation is about to pass over. And my will for you is to hide away in your rooms during prayer and fasting and keeping your eyes wide open to what is happening around you until the indignation is overpassed. People don't want to accept that that's the mood that God is in. And so they cast off the truth and they clothe themselves with lies of what they believe the time is. And so they're exactly like the atheists. They're unclothed, single fist. It's just them and what they believe. But the beast is coming enclosed and cloaked in severe power. And he's not just going to pop up one day and say, all of a sudden, it's time for the beast system. The beast system is an encroaching system. It is exactly like the sea eating away at the shore. It is exactly like the waves eating away as the tide is coming in, is going to eat away at the systems of men until the Lord says we are going to find ourselves with extremely limited options in the way that we are living. And one of the signs of that is going to be severely limited government, that he says we are not going to have an active representative, House of Representative government, and we're not going to have an active Senate, and we are not going to have an active judiciary. All these aspects will become rubber stamp pawns and dummy agents in the hands of the executive. America is going to be a nation that will have a very powerful and bloated executive that operates exactly like a king's court, one dynamic individual at the center of it, and then everybody else doing exactly what you've seen in every medieval movie, trying to fit in to the power structure where they can, so the women will want to be associated or marrying powerful men, or at least if you can't be his wife, then you will be his side thing on the side, and then speaking into his ear and you know, doing intrigues against his wife, trying to poison her so you can take her place. That is what palace intrigue is like. Everyone will be trying to curry favor with the person who is at the level above them. Is going to be a bloated government, a government of grift, a government of nepotism, a government of cronyism. This style of government is going to be eventually what America is sitting with. So when I'm speaking of the beast system and how it's going to change, I'm not saying, oh, it's changing this day, tomorrow, the next government that you see. No, God is saying that this process has been ongoing ever since George Bush Sr. sat in front of the nation with his mouth and said, oh, America, don't you know that we have the opportunity to create for ourselves a new world order? That type of dynamic speak that man said at least 40 or 50 years ago is a signaling to all the different plot points around the world who are going to be part of this government. When they stand and they make their speeches, they speak in cloak and dagger language. This is what you call uttering dark sayings, because they all have insider knowledge that will activate them and say, we're receiving a transmission from the seat of the beast. We're receiving a transmission from the head honchos who are orchestrating the beast system, and they are letting us know that the operation is a go. They are letting us know that we are here, here, and here now. So God is basically sending us a look from the future to let us know that the government is going to be extremely linear Right now, it's expansive. It has a system of checks and balances, and that is ensconced in the Constitution. But the Constitution of the United States is going to be no protector at the end. It's going to utterly be done away with. It's going to be undermined bit by bit by bit, repealed bit by bit by bit. Even its provisions to protect itself are going to be found to be faulty, and they will eventually get rid of it. And when they get rid of it, they will style a new government that is like a pyramid. It will have one dynamic individual at the top, people clawing their way, going up to the top, and then at the bottom, the citizenry that will be told what to do and how to do it. So forget about lawyers and independent courts and judges. Even if those things continue, they will not be able to help the average citizen. The court will be set up to always find the citizen guilty. The court will be set up to always find question with any kind of defense. And eventually, all the lawyers will get tired of losing in court all the time. They will allow themselves to be bought out, or they will quit, or they will kill them. And then you will simply have a setup of Nepo lawyers that either throw the case or always win for the state. And so God is saying, have we ever considered what life will be like when everything except the executive has active and actionable power? And everything else, the Senate is just people who, whenever a motion is proposed from the crown, the Senate goes aye. All of them, all different sides, right? The so-called red and blue that hate each other, all sides will vote yes. And then in the lower house, all sides vote yes. And then every motion carries. In 30 minutes, every motion will carry. That is what it's going to be like. And Yah says, have we ever considered what life is like when only one visible head, which is the so-called president or the person sitting at the top, has power? Have we ever considered North Korea life? He is asking. Dictatorship. And if that sounds scary, the reason it sounds scary is because it is punishment. It is punishment for abusing the liberty and the freedom that was given in the earlier years, in the earlier 100 years, 200 years of existence. It is punishment for taking license with favor of God, with the grace of God, with the freedom of God. It is punishment for thinking that freedom means exporting war and crushing the poor, both inside the borders and outside. And so the thing, as Job said, the thing that I fear has come upon me. The thing that America fears most, God has always says here, is that she will lose her freedom, because freedom is like a God to us. And therefore that God will be broken. When freedom is broken, that is how you get oppressive and repressive government. And so many options on the menu will not be available to us. Our civil rights will be sharply curtailed. And God says all the things that we do now without restrictions. Nobody tells you where to go, how long you can stay, and when to come back. Nobody tells you how much money you can spend. Nobody tells you how much money you can have. Nobody tells you how much of an item you can buy. If you want to stockpile, you can stockpile. If you want to build an extension on your house, you can build it. If you want to build a whole new wing on your house, you can build it. And yet, God is saying that in the future, we will not be able to have or build or buy the simplest things anymore. So the first example he gave was this. He said, consider an extension on your house. He was just talking to me. He says, it is your business, isn't it? If you want to build an extension on your house or not, it is your business. But he says, you will not be able to build an extension on your house without requesting permission from the government. Without a quantity surveyor from the government coming to examine your property to see if you qualify for an extension. Do you meet the requirement for more space? Do you have the requisite social standing to build that extension? Do you have the financial qualifications? And all that is needed to have an extra backyard extension, or to move your boundary fence, or to buy more land, or to add another story to your house once you've had the baby. You will be controlled in your private things, your most personal things, such as procreation, because of a new system that is intensely focused on a tagline called the greater good. The greater good is a sublime, overarching idea that subtly erases the individual from the center and replaces it with the state as the ultimate umpire of what good is, what a greater good versus a lesser good is, and when that should apply. You will need permission, capital letters, Yah says, to do simple things. The simplest things you have always done, as long as you had spare time, manpower, and money. Your freedoms will be pinched so much that only a tiny piece will remain with you, while the bulk of it will go to the government. The coming government will celebrate wins against you, America. Win after win will they celebrate against you while they change the laws in ways that make you suffer loss after loss. And so there's a lot to unpack here. So let us look at it from the beginning. The Lord is saying, consider extending your house. It's your business if you want to extend your house. An extension on the house, the only constraints on extending the house is there available land? Okay. Is there available land for you to do the extension without, for instance, encroaching too much on your neighbor's house? Because I don't own a house, but I think that there has to be at least a decent amount of space between the existing boundaries of a house and then the yard and then the fence, so that, for instance, you don't build a second story and then you're always staring into your neighbor's house and your neighbor's pool, that kind of thing. I don't think it's allowed. So all that limits you is, he says, manpower, okay? You having enough money to get the contractors in, or maybe it's your brother-in-law, your father-in-law who are going to do the work in-house. Handy guys are always great to have in the family line. Are you going to get a couple of friends? Are you going to go and pick up guys who maybe do short contracts and stuff like that? So it's about, can you have the manpower? Do you have the available land without troubling the boundary between you and the next neighbor? And also, do you have the money to do it? Those are obvious constraints. Once the answer to all those things is yes, 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 then obviously the next step is you're having your house extended. But in the future, in the kind of regime that is coming to consume the republic, I've just listed what you would need in the normal US republic to do something that people who have land and money and time and manpower do every day. But now we are going to come into a situation where you can answer yes to all those. So the answer to everything that the republic would ask you, you can say yes to all those. And then the regime will say, well, there's still more that we need to look at, Matthew. It is no longer your business to be able to build an extension, because first of all, you have to get land surveyors and property surveyors to come in from the government. Once you hear from the government, that automatically tells you that we are going into the time that I've been prophesying here for years, that tells you that many professions are going to go away. Many professions are going to absolutely disappear, not as in the people who do them will disappear. They will all be subsumed into the government structure. Can you imagine looking for a plumber, looking for an electrician, looking for somebody to maybe lay asphalt, looking for someone to do roofing and tile, and all those people are government contractors. Not a single one of them is an independent person. Every single person is a government contractor. Every single person has to come and fill out a ton of paperwork in triplicate and get it stamped and sealed by you, get it stamped and sealed by the government. A long bureaucratic process, when all along before now, all you have to do is look in the yellow pages, find the guy, and the guy will come and do it. Can you imagine a life like that, where every single thing, if a shingle flies off your roof and you want to get it fixed, the government is going to know about it? Does this not speak to the intensive monitoring that I've always said we're going to be living under here in the United States? That nobody will be able to pass gas unless the government actually knows about it and says, okay, that is the requisite amount of gas. You are allowed to relieve yourself. That is how it's going to be. So right here, he says a government person, not an independent contractor, not a guy who has his license, running a private business. So where is the private sector in the future? Yah has said here, America is going to be a socialist republic. Everything that we may want in terms of services, it will still be there, but it will all be state-owned. Private sector where? It will disappear. It will be subsumed. The government is going to consume it. The title of this prophecy is The Regime Will Consume the Republic. So you can automatically hear God saying independent contractors and the private sector is going to be diminished and eventually eaten up by the state taking everyone under its umbrella. And that is a very restrictive form of government. So you will have to get someone from the government who will come and approve. What if there's cronyism? What if there's lording it over you? What if bribes have to be paid before the guy will even show up? What if a further bribe has to be paid before the guy will even approve you? There are countries that operate like that right now. If you have a project that costs $100,000, you're going to pay $500,000 at the end of it. $100,000, the legitimate cost of the project. $400,000 along the way in bribes. $400,000 to get to rent the caterpillar, and then a couple of extra thousand to pay people, and then a couple of extra thousand because the chief officials will say, oh, this thing, it's causing noise in the eyes of the neighbor, in the ears of the neighbors. Let's shut it down. Then you have to put money out, and they will keep doing that. This road is a little bit too close to this old lady's house. I think we're going to have to shut it down. This is after you're halfway with the project. More bribe money comes out. Civilized societies, first world societies, are not supposed to operate like that. But we already have the groundwork for that because a lot of corruption already exists in America. Right now, in the last 4 months, we have been in an explosive period of scandals. Scandals with CEOs, scandals with local officials, scandals with high-ranking government officials all across the various states of America. So now, when you need to get a guy on your side, and he sees how desperate you are, and your wife is in her 4th, 5th month, and she's so anxious to have that little extension done for the nursery or an extra floor so she can be able to do her projects in the attics, and he's looking at the need in your eyes, then he might want to have a conversation on the side. And this will be a state-sanctioned employee that you will not be able to go and report and be believed over him. This is the difficulty of being a citizen in the claws of the beast. And so Yah is saying, do you qualify for this extension in the first place? Do you meet the requirement for more space? Who cares if you're a tech bro and you're finance bro and you've made a lot of money and you want a bigger house? You're a single person. You have no children to justify the need for space. Denied. You're a female. You're not married. Yes, okay, you have a dress designing business, and design it in the second room of the house. You don't need to build a showroom. You're female. You're not covered by a male. Denied. That kind of thing. Do you have the requisite social standing? So now God is talking about a situation of who do you know? Who do you know? Who's your friend? Who are you connected to? You're not connected to anyone? Or you're poor? Or you're unknown? You didn't go to Harvard? Oh, you don't have Ivy League connections? Denied. So you're seeing the kind of open legroom for the growing gaps and the growing discontent that the Lord is talking about that will spill a nation over into civil war. When you are a female and someone is looking in your face and telling you that just because you are not married and you don't have children, you don't deserve better housing, as you will hear later, that they will tell single people that they don't qualify for priority housing next to parks. Single people will be put in the dry, gray asphalt places. I have seen it. I spoke about it in 2022 in a live prophecy where I was saying, look at all the dorms. They're going to put single people in dorms. Tiny little aesthetic sleeves that are highly automated fridge, automated everything, weighted floors. A lot of those prophecies for the beast system, I've already covered them, and it's just by reason of you don't have a family, therefore you don't need to be closer to the train because you're not walking little Maddie to the bus. You're not walking little Jonathan to the train for school. And so you get put further out from the amenities, which now means what? Think about it. It's now the paradigm has changed, and now there's competition to be one of the fertile women. Do you hear the Lord saying you will be controlled in your most personal things, such as your right to procreate? So now you're 40 over and you haven't married and you don't have a baby. And now you are entering or terrified of entering what they now call the non-procreation zone. Why? They will tell you, oh no, it's a scientific proven fact that zygotes are not healthy after 35. So now women begin to sweat coming up to that 34th birthday. Competition in the population for males, available males who are even straight, who are even willing. Men now seeing themselves as a premium, lording it over women. Do you see all the all the dysfunction that is automatically being programmed into the situation, into the society, to make people angry, to make people anxious, to make people desperate. Desperate people will do anything. This is where you will now find a female trying to save up her credits so that any available male, just like Isaiah says, I think it's Isaiah 4, that women will take hold of one man. Doesn't Isaiah 4 say that? In that day, the scarcity for men, available men, 7 women will lay hold of one man and say to him that we have no need. You don't need to feed us and you don't need to give us apparel, meaning you don't need to buy us clothes and you don't need to take care of our daily needs, our food. We will handle all those things. Simply marry us to take away our reproach. Give us your last name to take away our shame. The Bible has not missed on anything it is saying. And when the Lord is speaking here, he is opening our eyes to a lot of these ancient scriptures that have not been taught to us properly for us to have an understanding of what is waiting for us up ahead. The worst thing as a Christian is to get in the future and be unprepared for the future, to be sitting there and crying like a homeless alley cat talking, but I thought we were going to fly away. I thought God loves us. What makes you think that because the end times are underway, God doesn't love you? God loves you even more because we're coming to times of testing. But loving you has nothing to do with preparing you. The two are completely different animals. They're divorced. God doesn't owe us to pause the end times just because we do not want to read and have the scriptures cracked open to us by somebody that he has sent us to tell us this is how point A slots into point B. All this time, people have been reading Isaiah chapter 4, and they did not know that it speaks to 2 things. The fact that war will kill a lot of the available men until 7 women. Can you imagine 7 women knowing about each other and agreeing to be the girlfriends, the wives of one man and living in peace? And this is not an Islamic nation or a polyamorous nation for the most part. 7 women quietly in the house saying, it's okay, sister wife Mo, and sister wife Shmo, and everyone getting along. Why? Because they do not want the monitors to come into that house and split them up from that man and put them back in the Handmaid's Tale. Whatever it is about. I haven't seen it, but I'm just saying. So they're asking you, do you even meet the requirement for more space? Single person? No. Married couple? Childless married couple? No. What do you mean you want to turn the backyard into a mini golf course? Is it only for one child? You want to use up this arable land to build a mini golf course for your son just before you're rich? No. Not only is it no, but now you are commanded by the government to turn this place into a garden. The government is going to require this amount of quota of carrots from this backyard every single month. Before you know it, for asking for frivolities, for asking for entertainment, you and your wife have now been turned into Jack and Jamila Farmer Brown. That is the kind of thing God is talking about here. And so, do you have the right to move your boundary fence? Do you have the right to buy more land? Do you have the right to add another story to your house? This baby that's coming, is it a single baby? Okay, denied. Is it twins? Oh, approved. Why? Because new citizens are coming into the regime. These people are going to have a creepy obsession with children, and at the same time, they will kill children, and you will hear more about it. So he says that they will control you in your most private things, such as procreation. You have heard about the IVF clinics and what God has said about them. And he says they will be intensely focused on this tagline of the new regime called the greater good. For the greater good, to understand that, please watch the prophecy called If You See Something, Say Something. The greater good is where they're going to weigh the needs of the individual versus the needs of the state versus the needs of everybody else. So the state and everybody else are both in the same weighing pan, which makes them very heavy because it's a ton of people and then there's only you. They will weigh everything that you want to do versus is it good for the state and is it good for other people? And almost overwhelmingly, the answer will be no, which means that a lot of the things that you may want to do, a lot of the dreams, a lot of the pleasures, a lot of the pursuits will be denied you because they will be deemed as social fluff, selfish things. I said that I have had dreams in which I have seen people at the point when the state adds killing to the mix. Right now, you are only hearing me discuss compulsion, being forced. But once the state adds killing to the mix, then you will start to hear people say, oh no, I live to grow carrots for the state. I wish they would let me grow cabbages as well. That is just terror talking out of people's mouths. America's going to be like, but worse than 1984, the novel. So the greater good is this overarching. When God says sublime, he means overarching perfect. That is what sublime is. Oh, a sublime, we had a sublime dinner. Oh, she is a sublime athlete. Just saying perfect and you cannot see the flaws. It is obviously not perfect. It is going to be sold to us as a utopia in which the perfection is that all of us eat, sleep, dream, think, what can I do for the state? What can I do for my fellow man? Again, you see the irony of God in judging this country, because America's unpaid job has been mocking North Korea, China, and Russia for this way of life. Endless papers written about it, endless Columbia talks and conferences held about it. How can a bunch of people, and there's so many too, there's so many in Russia, there's so many in China. How can an entire people allow themselves to be brainwashed by a small government at the top to simply be like automatons? I think only of the state. That is the end of this nation. People who are intrinsically selfish because of the capitalist system that they have been born into will be walking around and saying, if I only had one more chicken, it would lay one more egg for the state. All hail to the state. Can you imagine? Think of the average American that you know, which is yourself. Think of the process it would take to take your brain from where it is right now, where you can't stay out of Macy's with your spare money. Think of the process. Think of the fingernail dragging along the hardwood floor process it would take you from the place where you struggle to give your parents money if they need it. Because you're thinking, no, they should have handled that. They should have taken care of that. No money, their problem. My money, my problem. What it is going to take for them to take your extra money out of your social credit account and put it towards egg raising for the state. And then they tell you it's for the state. And all that happens is those eggs simply end up on the plates of Nancy Pelosi and friends. How are you going to feel about that? That is the excruciating pain that God says will enter the hearts of the citizens for countenancing the decades of wickedness that they allowed collectively to grow up in this nation and did nothing and simply said when they saw Dylan Mulvaney being trans, well, as long as it doesn't hurt the kids and, who am I to say anything? That is what God is saying. He says you will need permission to do the simplest things that you could have done whenever you just had spare time and money. All you needed to indulge yourself as a citizen of the United States was spare time and money. Well, God says now you will need permission, capital letters, and your freedoms will be pinched away. So just think of a rat taking a little bit of your cake, carrying it back. Little bit of your cake, carry it back, and before you know it, all the cake is with the rats in his house, and then there's just one small crumb with you. Your freedoms will be pinched away so much that only a tiny piece of it will remain with you, and the bulk of it will go to the government as the government celebrates win after win against the citizens of this nation while they change the laws in ways that make sure that the citizens will suffer loss after loss. And then there's travel restrictions. He says they're coming. Right now we get travel advisory, not travel restrictions. Americans get a travel advisory. An advisory is when they give you advice. They tell you there's mosquitoes in an area. They tell you there's wildfires in this area. It's wise not to travel there. They will say that there's going to be intense flooding in this part of the country or in this nation. Indonesia is having floods. India is having floods. American citizens are advised not to travel there because they will even say there's an outbreak of civil war in this region of the world. Americans are advised not to travel to this area. There's political instability. Citizens could get hurt. Do not travel. There's yellow fever. Do not travel. We have seen that there's an increased kidnapping of tourists. America will issue what is known as a travel advisory. They will put it on the main website. I think it's USCIS. And then they will, of course, blow it up on the news so that it's not possible for anyone to not know what's going on. And that means we advise you, meaning it's advice. It's not compulsory. Do not go to that place because we have determined as the governance of the nation that it's not safe for our citizens there. The health conditions of that place will pose a threat to you because of where you are from. Maybe you're unvaccinated against yellow fever, dengue fever, something that's happening somewhere else. They're saying the location is not secure. They're saying, in the case of wars and civil wars, we do not have complete power over there. We do not have influence in so and so area. So do not go there, because in the end, we may not be able to help you or protect you. That's a travel advisory. But now Yah says that travel restriction is coming, and that is something different. You can ignore a travel advisory and you can still go. And he says sometimes you will find that the government was simply being overly cautious. And there's nothing wrong with the place that you decided to go to. Sometimes there might be something wrong and the government was correct, but sometimes the advisory is not right. Sometimes nothing is wrong and you're free to go as you please. So the government will say don't go. Sometimes you do go and you do get in trouble. The advisory was right. But more often than not, as most people know, they give an advisory, you go and you have a fantastic time, you take pictures for Instagram, and you come back and it turns out that the government was wrong. Either way, Yah says, you are free to go as you please, but a travel restriction will not give you the same options. Remember, America, your options are being taken away. Your freedoms, which you so freely protect, will suffer gatekeeping. And now you as an adult will go only where you are allowed to and do only what you are allowed to. Breaking or ignoring travel restrictions will bring instantly a range of penalties ranging all the way from a financial ban of your funds. That is a temporary freeze on your bank account and all movement of your money if you are found guilty of breaking the travel restriction, to a hefty tariff on your funds. That means a massive fine. A taxation will be laid on you, or a fine of massive proportions that you will surely feel it, the fine that they will give you, the amount that they will put on you, such that you will never break a travel ban again. All the way to confiscation of your travel documents and the suspension of all rights to move around. So this time, it's not advisory, go or not go, based on how you feel. Now it's travel restriction. You go, the punishment is to totally freeze the bank account for a certain amount of time, no funds coming in or out. So you are not getting your salary, but your bills are still due. They freeze all movement on your bank account if you're found guilty, or they will put a hefty tariff on your funds. That means your funds are coming in and they have a 20% tariff on that thing for 3 months. For 3 months, 20% of every dime that you are entitled to is being taken off. So that is a consistent tariff, 3 months, 6 months, or it's a one-time fine of such massive proportions that every time you think about it, all the food goes into your windpipe instead of going into your esophagus. You feel that amount that they take away from you. And you can tell that I'm not talking about a wealthy system to begin with. So who wants to be fined? Or he says the top tier punishment is that your travel documents are taken away altogether. You lose the right to travel, and they suspend all rights that you have to move around. So the next time you see a plane or an overseas destination is who knows when, maybe 3 years after your infraction of breaking the travel thing. Housing preferences is another way that people will be punished, or it's another way that they will be controlling us in this system. The people who have children will be allowed to live closer to the train and bus lines, the good stores, the parks, lakes, and recreational spaces. Why? Because they will prioritize this concept of the new generation. Remember that these children are children that are being born now, but even more so the children that will come after Generation Alpha, which is your little ones now that automatically you give them a tablet. They know how to book a restaurant, call the cops, and report a crime. These little children are amazing with cell phones, with tablets, with that thing that you put on your eyes and then you enter the visual world, whatever it is. The Oculus, I think it is. But there's another thing. Apple has one that you put on and then you see something else. So they who are familiar with technology, and even more upmarket brand of children is coming, the new generation. Remember, these are the genetically moderated children. These are the perfect children. These are the read your mind children. These are the absolutely no concept of the love for God, because they will probably CRISPR, genetically cut the parts that can love God and listen to scriptures out of these children. They will be messing with these children in vitro. Please watch the female to male and male to female prophecy that was just made. It has the concept, the picture of a snake wrapped around an apple on it. From the garden, Satan has been trying to crack the code in us that makes us love God, that makes us willing to hear God, that makes us willing to subject and humble ourselves to the Bible. It is the greatest work of your life to humble and subject yourself to the Holy Spirit and the Word of God, and to allow the Word of God to rule over you. If you can manage to accomplish that and keep walking in it until you meet Jesus, you, my friend, have won in life. But it is not easy, and it is not without cost. Please be aware of that. So he says they will prioritize this concept of the new generation. And this is not to say that children are safe from being wiped out. That is not so. Don't be a child born with asthma. Don't be a child born with a leg that is off. Worse still, do not be an infant who, when they draw that placenta water, it says, 2.2% chance of Down syndrome. Don't be that baby, because they will be highly pushing terminations in the womb because they are looking for only the Dolph Lundgren type of baby to be born. It will be basically competition for life before life even comes out, before the child even comes out as whole. They will be competing who is going to live in the womb. It's going to be stiff competition the way they will be after these children. This is the curse, the same curse that they put on Moses and his generation, Jesus and his generation. Moses was the only baby of his age growing up. They killed everybody else. Same with Jesus. Older kids, younger kids, but by himself, it was just them. That is how they will go after the fruit of the womb. As well as telling people you have passed the age of viability, as well as telling people we have to completely check your bloodline lineage. Who remembers the prophetic vision that I was talking about, where the young girl and the boy had fallen in love, very unwise in those days, fallen in love first, didn't get themselves genetically tested. I guess they were just old school. Fell in love and now wanted to get married, and the person was sitting there depicted in Nazi uniform. God showing what this regime will be like. Sitting in Nazi Germany, sitting in Nazi Germany uniform and telling them, well, yes, but are you compatible? That's what the official was asking them. He was looking through her birth history, who her mother was, who her father was. Mother's diseases, father's diseases. Mother's convictions, father's convictions. Mother's background, father's background. History, medical history, emotional history, educational history. Everything related to those two young people was on the table in front of that official. He was looking at them and doing a computation in his mind. Imagine a human being given the power by the state to decide if you and the one you love fit. They were going to have to submit to genetic testing, blood testing, everything to see that they were not carrying any bloodline diseases that could what? Do you think it was so that they could be saddled with a baby that was maybe sick? A baby that would come into the world carrying an inherited disease? No. The state could not afford to be saddled with a less than perfect citizen. So this is not because they will not kill children. On the contrary, they will not hesitate to wipe them out if they do not conform to medical guidelines and come out looking perfect or next to perfect. However, the housing priority guidelines will be different from the procreation guidelines. Children can be used as a means to access better housing, and single people will be put further and further out in terms of from the hub. If the hub has the cinemas, if the hub has the donut shops, if the hub, the 12-minute city, if it has all the good things at the center, then you can expect concentric rings with people who have the biggest families closest, because they will say, oh, the little one can't walk that far. And then the smaller your family, you're out there until the single people form the very outer hub, because apparently you are young and strong and you can simply get a green bike and ride 18 miles until you get to where the donuts are, that kind of thing. So housing priority will be different from procreation priority. Who can access having a baby? Who can win the baby lotto? Will you be granted a baby lotto card so that you can have a baby this year? Have you aged out of ever qualifying for a lotto? Do you have the bright birth line? Are you a Hilton? Are you a Marriott? Are you a Rockefeller? Are you a Gates? That kind of thing. So they will put single people further away from everything on account of the fact that they will tell them you aren't taking care of anyone else but yourself. Thus says the Lord, in the new regime to come, you will be limited to your homestead, your apartment, your courtyard. This is shades of 2020 right there. Shades of 2020 right there, to the point where the states closed the borders. States like New York were staggering under the numbers of people who were infected and falling down. And New Jersey just went ahead and closed the border on us. Well done. So, limited to your homestead, your apartment, your courtyard, you can automatically hear your apartment is just some wall space where you live. Your apartment, your homestead is basically your barrier fence. Your courtyard is where your apartment building is. You stay within the fenced in walls of where the apartment stands. You will be limited to where your building is, your house is, your state, and your front lawn. Now, how can you be limited in these things unless the soldiers that I told you about will be doing patrols? Unless the government is now, the police are now doubly empowered to keep you where you are. All you have to do is watch that dream called A Dream of a Militarized America. But I've been talking about this thing for many years, but that's one of the more recent ones I can think of. The dream of a militarized America, and also the two prophecies that were just put up recently that talk about the military in the streets controlling movement and telling us go back to your homes and things like that. You will go no further than your front lawn under a travel restriction, and for as many days as it lasts until it is lifted, you will sit at home and do nothing but dream about the days when you were free to do as you wished before it became the regime. The regime is a different animal from the republic. The regime will kill the republic. The regime will undermine and eat the republic until it goes into the darkness where nothing can revive it anymore. So I don't think the Lord can be clearer than that. This America that you fight for is a dead animal. The difficulty that many people with hard heads will encounter is this. The love of God has come to you in the days when the sun is still shining to tell you, come out of her, my people, and do not share in her sins. But the Babylonians do love them, some Babylon. There are Babylonians in this country who, when they heard the word of the Lord here, they were shocked to find out that this was Babylon, which made them Babylonians. They cried, but now they are in the process of hacking, clipping, sawing, and scalpeling themselves free of all the ties of Babylon. Because they've heard the Lord said that if you stay tied to Babylon, when Babylon begins to go into her sepsis, her final death shocks, every single electric shock coming out of her body will cook you too, because you are connected to her and you are vested in her survival no matter what. She must live. Why? Because you are tied to her. You know that if she dies, you dies. And so when you're fighting for America, you're basically fighting for your own life, but you cannot win against the Bible. You cannot win against scripture. This nation's funeral is laid out perfectly. Jeremiah 50, Jeremiah 51, Isaiah chapter 9, for instance. I think Jeremiah 13 is one. Definitely Revelation 18 is the coup de grace, the final axe cut to the neck of America. America will never survive. The juvenile thing that people do is they will come and say, you hate America, and then what? What happens? It puts money in my bank account. It adds years to my life. It's a very low level of thinking to think that someone who has been shown the truth by God and is now bringing it to you has to have personal feelings about it. I just need to be able to speak the same English as you to make sure that I try to hold your prickly hands and lead you away from the cliff edge that is waiting for this country. I said that America has already fallen over, but the thing is that there is a ball and chain connection between the falling, plummeting rock and the legs of many people. I'm cutting at the chain between you and her so that when she runs out of chain, it doesn't yank you over the edge with her. But the majority of people do not want to listen. And so it has to be like that. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 9, 10, 11, and 12. It has to carry somebody. I've always said, no scripture is wasted. That Bible verse, 2 Thessalonians 2, that God will allow strong delusion in the minds of people because they love the lie and they hated the truth that would have saved them. Someone has to eat that Bible verse. The unfortunate thing is that in this country, it will be hundreds of millions of people with a tiny remnant standing with no ball and chain looking over and saying, that could have been me. When America dies, those who still have her pumping in their veins are going to perish with her. There will be no other way for it. And so everyone is in that point where the sun is still in the sky and God is saying, come out of her, my people. Very few people are listening. Most are in the streets campaigning for civil rights. How can you campaign for civil rights in a country that is going to be destroyed by another monster that is within it? The monster is tearing her open like a caterpillar coming out to turn into a butterfly, an evil mechanical butterfly. The rise of AI, the rise of robots, the rise of a controlling satanic kingdom. And then you're saying, but I still want the cocoon carcass because it used to be mine. You have to hate yourself to do that. But then the evidence is in. A lot of people in this country hate themselves. They hate the truth. They hate the Lord. They hate his presence. They hate his discourse, his conversation. They only want what they want. And so, unfortunately, they're not even going to get that. Travel restrictions keeping people locked up in their homes. He says for as many days as the travel restriction, you will go no further than the front gate, no further than the door in some cases. You'll be in your homes. Some people, he said, you'll be limited to your homes. For others, at least, he says, to your homestead. That's the people in the rural areas, at least. Dreaming about the days when you were free before America became the regime. And the regime is a different animal from the republic. And the regime is going to kill the republic. And then listen to what he says. Not only kill it, but also eat it. Isn't that what Black Widow Spider does? Isn't that what all predators do? Do predators kill for fun? Will they ever kill and walk away? No, that's mankind. Who kills a trophy animal, a giraffe, a lion, puts your foot on it, takes a picture, and then walk away. But this one is going to eat what it killed. The New World Order is going to kill and eat America. And that means that every single person still wearing that tagline, I'm an American, instead of I'm a child of God and I'm putting Babylon behind me in the rear view mirror, will get eaten right along with it. That is the prophetic word of the Lord. The title is The Regime Will Consume the Republic, November 9, 2024. The prophecies you can look at, please listen. If you see something, say something. The next one is a look ahead, housing, technology, and daily life in the beast system. The next one is the future kingdoms, social structure of the coming beast system. The next one is the social credit score. The next one is the biometrics and the beast, the movement of technology and money in the beast system. The next one is the beast system is here, a worldwide test for all. The next one is the power of faith and the coming beast system. The next one is telling, spying, sellouts, and secrets in the coming beast system. The next one is the era of apps, the rule of technology in the beast system. The next one is Davos, the world ahead, the future beast system. The next one is the beast system, strong warnings about children and the government. The next one is a new ID for America, looking at AI and the social credit score. The last one is emergency powers, a brutal rise of power in America. I am Celestial, and this is the Master's Voice. Until I see you, God bless you, and goodbye.